Jason, thank you. A man accused of a deadly highway shooting and crash in Brown County found competent to proceed with trial. Authorities say Outagamie County shot a driver on I-41 in Ashwaubenon back in August. The victim was hit in the head, causing a crash. The victim died from multiple gunshot wounds. A preliminary hearing is set for December 18th. This morning, an Outagamie County judge sentenced a former high school bowling coach to 2 years probation after he pleaded guilty to strangulation. James Bilefuss choked a 13-year-old boy during a bowling league practice earlier this year. Samantha Cavalli looks at the conditions of the man's sentence.
Inside a nearly empty courtroom Friday, 60-year-old James Bilefuss stood before the judge, accepting a plea deal.
What is your plea to count 1, felony strangulation and suffocation?
Guilty.
The incident happened in April at Wally Seymour Bowling Alley, which Bilefuss owns. Court documents say an argument over how a 13-year-old was bowling escalated after the teen swore, and Bilefuss admitted he, quote, lost control, grabbing the boy by the neck.
There's been other kids that have talked back to him, other kids that have been disrespectful, and for whatever reason, Judge, he overreacted on this date.
The boy reported neck pain, having visible red marks, and a hoarse voice. Other teens in the league that night quit on the spot and called their parents.
There was escalation by the defendant. There was a lot of anger, and he really reacted in a really inappropriate way, especially when dealing with children.
After hearing from both sides and Bilefuss expressing regret, Judge Mark McGinnis sentenced him to 90 days in jail, but stayed that time. Instead, 2 years of probation, with the jail term activated if he violates it.
It seems from all accounts that you realized it within a matter of seconds, and you stopped or de-escalated the situation, which is a benefit to everybody.
Judge McGinnis also ruled Bilefuss has to write an apology letter to the victim and the Seymour community, along with no contact with the victim and attend anger management classes. In Outagamie County, Samantha Cavalli, Action 2 News.